Hey, what's going on? What's going on? Welcome to another rich conversation. I know the screen before might have said something different, but this is a rich conversation. We are going to be talking about the four domains of intimacy, and we want you to come on in, join the conversation with us, drop your thoughts, your likes, your comments, your questions in the comment section.
Yeah.
We are super excited to be here and talking with you tonight. I know you just saw us last night on Late Night Marriage with the Riches, but we back here. You're
We're
gonna get
back.
sick of us.
We're back.
We get sick of us. We gonna talk a whole bunch of stuff. Um, just we gonna go in. Just keep going in. So get sick of the riches if you want to. That's on you. But we're gonna be giving you information to help you build healthier, stronger, purposeful relationships. And tonight we're going to be talking about intimacy.
Mhm.
Intimacy.
Intimacy.
Let's get into
That word.
intimacy. That word, that misunderstood little word, that misused
Hmm.
little word, that word that has become more synonymous with sex than it is true
Right.
meaning. So we definitely want to get in and talk with you tonight about intimacy. And the first thing we want to do is dispel a common myth about the word. When we hear intimacy, we typically use it for sex. Oh,
Right.
they were intimate.
Hmm.
And it is possible to be intimate with some or to have sex with someone without being intimate with that someone.
Hmm.
It is possible to have sex and not be intimate with the person.
True.
The word intimacy has come on to euphemistically represent the word sex,
Hmm.
but intimacy is so much bigger than sex. And if we could grow in that way of understanding it, it might help us. I wish if I could go back, even as a teenager, practicing premarital sex, understanding that sex was not intimacy.
Hmm.
And core level, at our core level, we want intimacy, we really want to be known by people.
Right.
We want to be known by the
Truly
person
known.
that we people that we call close to us, people that we love, and definitely the people that we marry. We want to call ourselves, we want to get to a place where we are
Yes.
truly intimate, um, where we can develop true intimacy. And
Mm-hmm.
so that's our desire, that's our hope, is to share something with you, some of the hard lessons we learned. And I definitely wish I understood intimacy better
Mm-hmm.
at the beginning of the marriage.
Right. A
So,
lot of times when we think intimacy or when we were coming up, for me, it was more like romanticized. So you
mm,
thought intimacy, romantic sex scenes or love scenes and
mhm,
affection um, between couples a
absolutely,
lot of times. And it is a
absolutely.
part of affection, but just in a different sense. Or we just tried to minimize it to just that.
Yeah, it's
Hmm.
deeper than that.
It's way deeper.
It's deeper than the surface. Yes, intimacy can include sex, but intimacy is not just about sex,
Sex, right?
right? So it comes in, and the thing about the reason I think it's important to develop true intimacy is because at some point the plumbing stops working.
Hmm.
At some
It does.
point there's only so much you can do and enjoy or whatever, and you're gonna enjoy it until the plumbing turn off.
Hmm.
But
It
it,
starts to trickle, go a
it
little slower.
it starts to trickle.
Leaks.
Exactly.
Right.
And you're going to need something deeper, something
For
more
sure.
meaningful with that person than just sex.
Hmm.
And the fact that if you boil it down to sex, then intimacy also creates that definition creates an objectification of just the body
You're right.
between man and woman. And
Right.
now I can be easily enticed because someone else might know a little more about sex.
Mm.
They can make you feel a little bit different about sex
Right.
because you thought that that was what intimacy was,
Was.
and that's not
Hmm.
it, right?
So much more.
Yeah. So we're going to talk about the four domains of intimacy. We're going to get on this. You've probably heard us teach on it before. We're going to teach on it some more because we can never stop talking about it. Because I want you to notice as we go through the four domains how they stack on each other.
Hmm.
That's one of the things I really want you to get is how they stack on each other. So let's jump into the first intimacy, and we're going to not only tell you what it is, the domain is, but we're going to tell you kind of what it takes to establish it. So let's go here for this first one. Oh, hold on. I should probably go over here
First.
first
There
and
we
then go there. So here's the first thing on intimacy: emotional intimacy. And emotional intimacy requires vulnerability,
It does.
right?
Yeah.
I'm going to say something that,
Vulnerability and availability.
whoo,
Mhm.
hold on. Let me
Okay.
let me update the notes. Vulnerability and
Availability.
availability is what emotional intimacy requires. Ooh, I like that.
Mhm.
Expound on that availability before I go deeper. Go ahead.
Because a lot of times what happens when we get in relationships and we want that intimacy and we desire, especially women. And of course, it starts with the sex idea, but as you get deeper and go, he's just not, or she's just not, because it's not just men, um, seem to have it or get past a certain barrier. And then when you come to realize it, or you learn for yourself what intimacy and emotional intimacy is, you go, oh, that's because they don't have that availability or capacity
Mm,
to be emotional intimate with me.
yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes. I can go with that. I like
Yeah,
that.
because you're having conversations, and outside of sex, you're trying to communicate or have a conversation or become more vulnerable with
Hmm.
someone, and it's like they cut you off, or they're not sure, or they can't go deeper into the conversation or the
Yes.
communication, and that's because they're not available.
Yes, yes, no, and I like that because that availability piece, I think, is probably something that we all have overlooked in some way, shape, or form,
Yeah,
because it's so important. Am I available
available.
to be vulnerable to establish an emotional, intimate connection?
Right, right.
Wow.
And what emotional damage or trauma have I had in my life that actually, as we talk about, or like the credit card analogy, that's
Yeah.
taking that up. And so
Yes.
now I don't have that much credit, if you will,
Yes.
left.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. And in case y'all have never heard us on the credit card analogy, we're gonna definitely do some teaching on that
Yeah.
again. And it's something that we use a lot in our coaching courses, and we talk about the credit card analogy. So we'll give you a little bit more on that. But when we talk about that emotional intimacy, because you sparked a whole nother angle
Hmm.
about it requires vulnerability and
And
availability.
availability. Yeah.
Let me break down the vulnerability part.
Okay.
What and I thought this for a long time.
Hmm.
Vulnerability and transparency are not the same.
Right.
You can be transparent
Hmm.
without being vulnerable.
So true. And I think it took both of us a while to really understand that, get
Hmm.
that.
Yeah. I can be and I think that's where a lot of people get fooled
Hmm.
in relationship where they think, oh, they're so vulnerable. No, they were actually being transparent with you.
Hmm.
They weren't being vulnerable. Because vulnerability requires you to be at risk. Vulnerability requires you to be naked before that person. Vulnerability requires you to expose yourself to
Hmm.
hurt. That's what vulnerability is.
Right.
I like to think about it from the animal world, where if a dog or a wolf or certain animals, if they roll over and show you their belly, they're being vulnerable. They're saying, I'm showing you my most sensitive part.
Hmm.
You can do major damage to me if you
Right.
are not a person that is trustworthy because you could end my life. I am being vulnerable
Hmm.
with you. When I go to the Bible, I like the story of Samson when a man is symbolic of a man laying his head in the lap of the woman that he loves because I
Right.
am in a defenseless position
Yep.
that you could do major harm to me. Matter of fact, there's a story in the Bible where this king, I think he was running away and he went in and the lady hid him. And then after she hid him, she went and drove a tent spike through. She fed him good,
Hmm.
gave him some milk, got him
Right.
rested up, got him safe, got him secure, got him disarmed, covered him up, then drove a tent spike through his brain. He was vulnerable with
Hmm.
her.
Right.
He was in a place of weakness. He was in a place of where he needed rest. He was in a place where he needed nourishment. He was in a place where he needed safety and
Hmm.
security. And
It's
we don't,
truly where you let your guard down.
yeah, your
Yeah.
guard is all the way down.
Hmm.
And then she betrayed that. Delilah betrayed that with Samson. Um, Proverbs 31 begins to say, in the heart of her husband doeth safely trust in her, that she will do him good and not evil all the days of her life. That
Right.
is a vulnerability,
Right.
which is different than transparency.
Hmm.
I can be very transparent about a bunch of stuff, and you never get close enough to be vulnerable with me.
And I think that happens a lot of times when you talk about the side, what, chicken and rooster. Um, a lot of times in these relationships outside of your marriage, or that side person, side chick, whatever you want to call it, a lot
Hmm.
of times you think they're being vulnerable with you, but they're only being transparent. So they're
Yeah.
telling you certain things, and you be like, oh, they're telling me this and they're telling me that. And so you start to be manipulated or sucked in by
Hmm.
the transparency, but it's not necessary they're being vulnerable with you.
Exactly.
Hmm.
Exactly. There's some people in friendships,
Hmm.
vulnerability is important. And there's some friends
True.
that know some things about me that they are not going to share with other people. Other people, very few other people know those things about me. And I know similar things about them.
Right. It's the one, that true friend that you go, they know where all the bodies are buried.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's vulnerability
That's
in a
vulnerability.
relationship. Yes.
That's vulnerability. Yes. So let's move to the next one. Let's move to the next one. The next one is physical, and I want you to give me your thoughts on here since you giving some dropping these nuggets. So physical intimacy requires open conversation.
Mhm.
Okay.
That's good.
So physical intimacy, if I could state it another way, does require a transparency,
Hmm.
right? But if you really want your physical intimacy, and I'm talking about still even beyond sex, just knowing how to allowing someone to touch you,
Hmm.
not even in a sexual way, that calms you. If they can just put their hand on your shoulder
Mm-hmm.
and you not flinch, you have a certain level of say the volume is low. All
Uh-oh.
right, hold on. Let me bring it up. Let me bring it up. Is that better?
Let us know if you can hear us better. Is it my mic or yours?
I don't know. I have not a clue. And let me bring this up too, just a little bit. All right. So physical, when it comes down to physical intimacy, it requires open conversation. And when we're talking about open conversation within physical intimacy, like I said, it's a touch. I can touch you on your shoulder and you don't flinch
Mm-hmm.
because you feel safe. We have an open conversation, but that does carry over into the bedroom.
Right.
That you
It
talk
does.
about your desires and your wants, that we can talk about those things and meet each other's needs
Mm-hmm.
in the bedroom. But that starts with open conversation. It starts with also being in a safe, intimate, emotional
It
space
does.
to have and enhance that physical, that true physical intimacy.
Yeah, it starts emotional, mentally, it's up here. And then when the person feels safe enough for you to touch their shoulder or rub their back, or,
Mm-hmm.
for women, a lot of times the small part of their back, they
Mm-hmm.
call it, or a leg or
Right.
anything. Yeah. But do you ever run into people that if you touch them, like you said, they like,
Yeah.
or move away, or like, please don't touch me, or, you
Yes.
know, and
Yes.
that's a sign that something has happened or something is wrong
Yes.
a lot of times. And sometimes people just like, oh, don't invade my space. But a lot of times, if you catch them off guard, and especially if you know them well and
Mm-hmm.
they still are like kind of fidgety, or don't touch me, or I
Mm-hmm.
don't like to be touched, that's a sign of some type of brokenness, some brokenness, or some forgot what I was about to say, some brokenness or something that's happened, trauma.
Yeah.
Yeah, brokenness or trauma.
It's where they don't feel safe for
So,
some reason,
mm-hmm.
right? That may have nothing to do with you,
Right.
but it is something that they want to or need to overcome,
Come. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So this is something else about around physical intimacy, right? When it comes to physical intimacy, to nourish that type of intimacy, you have to have open conversation with the person about their level of comfort with different types of touch.
Right.
Like if you had someone that was in a domestic abuse
Mm-hmm.
situation, they may not feel comfortable with you touching
Touching
them in
them.
a certain way, not because of you, but because of, like you said, the
Mm-hmm.
trauma of something that they've had go on with them.
Mm-hmm.
And it may not always be an always don't touch me like
All
that.
right.
It's situational. You've
Mm-hmm.
got to learn when it's okay to touch me
All right.
in that way. I've heard that about sexual abuse um, survivors and such. It's like it sometimes it bothers them, sometimes it don't,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so it's that healing
All
process,
right.
and you want to get to a place of healing touch. I think about the movie Something About Mary with Cameron Diaz and Ben Stiller, I think it was, and she had
Oh, you're
a
going back, way back.
way back. She had a little brother who he would have these headphones and he wouldn't let
Oh, yes.
anybody touch him. But
Mm-hmm.
over time, he won the trust that when their relationship was almost over, he went and he told the little boy bye and he pulled his earphone, hey, bye. And he didn't react. He's like, okay, bye. And she was like amazed because he had broken through to the
Mm-hmm.
brother where it's okay in that physical touch. Same thing happens with us in relationships. We have to get into a place where we're okay, where we've had open conversation
Right.
about how we want to be touched physically. And again, I don't want you to limit that to sex. Sometimes emotional intimacy or physical intimacy is about, hey, when we're in the mall, I would like you to hold my hand.
Mm-hmm.
Or, when we're in the car, just lay your hand on my leg or
Right.
whatever. Just let me know you're there. That means something to someone. So that physical intimacy is so much greater than sex.
It is. It is.
Yeah.
Yeah. When you can't even, as spouses, touch each other,
Mm-hmm.
in a way that it says, I'm safe with you, or I feel safe with you, or okay with you.
Mm-hmm.
And like you said, it doesn't necessarily is sexual or
Mm-hmm.
leads to sex.
Oh yeah.
Mhm.
Oh yeah. So let's get to the fourth domain. Fourth domain. Spiritual intimacy. This requires listening to understand.
Mhm.
Okay. We grew up in an area, and I think this is not unique to our area, where there's a lot of denominations. There's Southern Baptist, there's Missionary Baptist, there's Primitive Baptist, there's Methodist, there's AME, there's all these things. And so, even in that, there's sometimes that couples get married, and I'm going to keep going to my Primitive Baptist church because they wash feet, and your Southern Baptist church doesn't,
Mhm.
right? And we're not really spiritually on one accord. We're not really spiritually intimate with each other because we believe that the denominations make us somewhat different, but we love each other enough to be with each other. Like,
Right.
it's not different enough for us not to be together, but it is different enough for us not to worship together.
Right.
Now, if you're going to do that
Mhm.
and develop spiritual intimacy, at some point you have to sit down and talk about the why.
Mhm.
And you have to approach that not from a place of defensiveness,
Right.
but from a place of learning,
Learning.
a place of understanding. Notice I didn't say a place of agreement, place of learning and understanding. I didn't say a place of agreement.
Mhm.
You may not believe in washing feet, and that's perfectly fine. That may be the place, but we don't have to argue about that. But is that the thing that keeps us from worshiping together?
Mhm.
Now imagine that gap is broader. And we've said this before. What if your spouse says, you know what? I no longer believe in God. Y'all started out both believing in Jesus. And now they
Yeah.
say, I don't believe in God. What do you do then? That's where spiritual intimacy comes in, because I feel safe sharing with you that I'm struggling with my belief.
Right.
And so much I'm struggling with it that I'm saying I don't believe anymore. Spiritual intimacy.
Mhm. And being comfortable enough to have those conversations
Mm-hmm.
with each other and what it is that you do agree on.
Mm-hmm.
It shouldn't be a back and forth or, tit for tat, and keeping the main thing, which is your
Yeah.
belief,
Yeah.
and making sure you both have the same belief system.
Yeah. And if they don't have that belief system, how do
Mm.
I deal with that? How do I develop spiritual intimacy with someone
Without,
I love Jesus and they don't?
mm,
They've decided I don't love Jesus anymore. I'm not talking about y'all started off and you already knew that they believe differently than you and you still decide to get married. I'm talking
mhm,
about you get married and somebody pivots,
right.
right? What do I do then?
Mhm,
Right? What do I do then in terms of being able to talk with them?
mhm,
Because what our natural inclination is to become defensive.
yeah.
Now I want to convince you again. No, I want to understand.
Mhm,
I want to understand how you reach that point, because sometimes and I'm using that as an extreme example, sometimes what will happen is you'll be trying to convince them,
right.
right? Let me give you a more real circumstance. Both of you got married and neither one of you believed in the Lord.
Mm.
And then one of you comes to be a believer. Will you have the ability to be able to explain
Mhm,
to them as they seek to understand?
right. Offer them that grace.
Yeah,
Mhm,
that's spiritual. That in itself is spiritual intimacy.
right.
That I can feel safe telling you that I now believe in something that when we started, I didn't believe in.
Right.
Can we have a conversation
Conversation.
about it? And have that conversation from a place of, I'm not trying to um, convince you to come and also believe in Jesus. I would love it if you did, but I would love to be able to talk to you about it without it offending you.
Mhm.
Spiritual intimacy.
Right. Without it becoming an argument.
Yes,
Mhm.
yes. Spiritual intimacy. Let's get into this last domain.
Yeah, that was the third one. I think we're in the fourth one now.
Yeah, we're in the
That's
fourth one. That
yeah.
was the third one. You're right.
Yes.
That is number
Yes.
3. This is number 4.
Four.
Yes. Spiritual intimacy. Let's talk about it. spiritual or not spiritual intimacy. I'm sorry, mental and intellectual intimacy. Let's talk
Yes.
about that. And that is, it requires curiosity. Can I talk to you about my crazy dreams? And I ain't talking about my going to sleep dreams, but my dreams of what I want to
Life
build,
dreams and
life dreams
goals.
and
Yeah.
goals. Can I talk to you about my latest invention idea? Can I talk to you about I can I open up with you and share something that may seem harebrained to you,
Hmm.
right? But this is just like I believe it. I'm gonna give you an example, right? One day I was having a discussion with someone, and this would be an example of spiritual intimacy. I was having a discussion with them, and this was a good friend, but I also hadn't I've shared this with you
Hmm.
is so they were like, man, see the dinosaurs, and this kind of commingles with spiritual. The man with the dinosaurs and this and that, and you can't believe the Bible because this and that. And I said, no, I said I actually can believe the Bible.
Right.
I can believe that there were dinosaurs, and I can believe that everything in Genesis 1 about God creating the earth is real. How can you believe that? Oh, see, let's get curious, right? Um, let's get curious.
Hmm.
Let's get really curious about it. When we start talking about the earth and the earth being created, I'm not trying to create a Bible study here for you. I said you have to read the Bible cohesively. And I went on to just explain a few things. I said, scientists typically say, oh, the dinosaurs were killed by either an ice age or a major asteroid struck the earth. And that's what wiped them all out.
Hmm.
And I said, are you familiar with the Bible? And they're like, yeah, a little bit. I said, well, there's a scripture that says, behold, I saw Lucifer fall from heaven like lightning. What if the asteroid that hit the earth and wiped the dinosaurs out was Lucifer being tossed out of heaven? They're like, what? Now that may sound crazy,
Right.
right? But I ain't worried about you trying to put me in a loony bin or whatever. You know what I'm saying? I
Right.
want to be able to share
Have the
whatever my
conversation.
ideas and my thoughts are. We can have it. It made for a good discussion, good
Hmm.
debate, and this, that, and the other. But it's like that. Hey, I want to open a McDonald's or whatever, and that's my dream. Hey,
No
can
matter how crazy it sounds.
how no matter how crazy it
Hmm.
sounds, can you get curious about their intellect, get curious about their mental state, get curious about their hopes, dreams, and ambitions, curious enough to explore it with them, whether you agree with it or not.
Hmm.
Now, when those dreams start having a negative impact on finances, or hey, I just invested $1,000 in some course that I ain't gonna never feet
Right.
do or whatever,
Oh,
you know what
that's a
I'm saying? And
different
we ain't talk
conversation.
about it,
Right.
right? That ain't what we talking about. But what we are talking about is, can we have those conversations,
Hmm.
right?
Right. Because those are the conversations that
Mm.
really, truly um, builds the intimacy more and
Yeah.
more because that's in depth of their mind and their
Mhm.
thinking and what they're thinking and what's on their heart.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's coming from a place of hear what's really on the heart, what they want to do, and that they feel um, vulnerable enough to
Hmm.
share these things with you.
Yeah. And sometimes it's not even about them really wanting to bring it to fruition. They just wanted to talk about it and
Right.
hear you engage them on it. And then maybe you look at it like, well, actually, babe, that's not a bad idea. You should think about this. Have you considered that? Like, oh, I didn't really think. And all of a sudden, you planted life into them where they were just wanting to spitball something. And then they got like, oh, something could come of that.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, thank you, honey. I didn't think about that. And you start pushing and pressing
Right.
to that regard. Yeah. So that talks about, again, our if we go through, we started out with emotional intimacy, right? Which requires a vulnerability and availability.
Availability.
There she goes. She forgot. She
Avail.
forgot.
No, I
Uh,
was thinking.
then we hit physical
Yes.
intimacy, which requires open conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Then we talked about spiritual intimacy, which requires listening to understand, right?
Yeah.
And then lastly, we talked about mental and
Mental.
intellectual intimacy, which requires curiosity
Mm-hmm.
if you want to nourish it. Now we want to give you five things that will help you build deeper intimacy. You ready?
Ready.
We're going to drop all 5 of these to you, and then we'll talk through them. Familiarity, safety, security, intentionality, and risk. If you want to build deeper, lasting intimacy, you have to have familiarity, safety, security, intentionality, and risk.
And the 3 C's of her needs. I just had to throw that in there, but we'll talk about it when we get to intentionality.
Okay, intentionality. So let's start with familiarity. There's a saying that familiarity breeds contempt. And because of that, the same thing that it takes to build intimacy, deeper intimacy, can also destroy it. So when it comes to familiarity, being familiar with someone, being close and in acquaintance with someone is super important.
Right.
Being familiar with their moods and their ways and what makes them happy, knowing what their favorite meal is without having to go and ask the kids and stuff like that. And, doing, I'm sorry, babe. Let this slide out there. But being able to, being familiar with them, knowing them, right?
Right.
You have to have a familiarity. But when you get familiar with someone, you're not just going to learn about their good parts. You're going to learn about their bad parts as well. You're going to learn about the parts of them that are not so endearing.
Right. You're going to learn the good, the bad, and the ugly.
All of those. And when you learn those things, you may have a tendency to want to mistreat them,
call them out their name,
show contempt for them, which we covered last night on Late Night Marriage with the Riches. You now that familiarity starts to work against your intimacy. And here's what it takes. In order for you not to allow familiarity to work against your intimacy, you have to learn and have a heavy dose of forgiveness and grace and mercy.
Amen.
Want something to help you as far as developing grace and forgiveness and mercy? Try exercising empathy. What's empathy? Stand in their shoes for a minute. And if you can't find yourself being able to step in their shoes, then you probably haven't talked enough because you don't know something about them that allow you to step into their shoes. I want you to just be able to step in their shoes for a minute. See it from their perspective. Again, doesn't mean you have to agree with it, but step in there and say, oh, I can see how you feel like that. It's that simple. Second one is safety. And you see safety and security, but safety and security are 2 completely different things. So safety is about a condition of being protected.
Right.
Right? The safety officer provides protection. The safety features of your car provide protection.
Yeah.
Safety is about protection, while security is a state of being free from threats. When I'm secure in who I am, when I'm secure in who we are, let me put it this way in a relationship. When you are secure in your relationship, you're not worried about the side chicks and the side roosters.
Right.
Because I'm secure in us.
I know what we have, what we've built.
Yes. So it is, security takes you to a whole different level because I am secure in us. I know who we are. That's security. And some relationships are not thriving in intimacy in other areas because they are not secure in their relationship.
Right. And we're only secure in us because of that middle cord that holds it all together.
Yes.
And that's Jesus Christ.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's not just being secure and confident in who we are, but who he is.
Yeah. And I'm push back on that a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
That's true. It's true, but there are some people who are secure in their relationship and they don't believe in Jesus. And the reason why
Mm-hmm.
is whatever they believe in it singularly. They believe in it together. They
Mm-hmm.
are singleness of heart, singleness of mind.
Right.
So that real security comes in. We've got to be on one accord.
For sure.
Because, and the reason I say that is because then I go back to the spiritual intimacy.
Mm-hmm.
If they're stopping believing, and I do believe, that is going to shake some of that security.
Right.
But it depends on how we navigate the conversation so that we can come to a place of understanding.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Right.
So, yeah, yeah. But I get what you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
And for us, that's definitely
Oh
that's
yeah.
it. That's where
Yeah.
we
For
agree,
me.
right? And but it's important that singleness of heart, singleness of mind. If y'all agree that singleness of heart, singleness of mind, that we gonna rob banks, and that's what we gonna do
Right.
for the entirety of our relationship,
And
and
we
y'all
Bonnie
good,
and Clyde.
Bonnie and Clyde.
Yeah.
Long as y'all are both on the same page with that, y'all relationship gonna be so secure. But as soon as one of y'all get tired of, like, man, I'm tired of robbing banks. I'm tired of being on the run. I'm
Right.
tired of not being able to know if I can go down to the department store
Having
without.
anxiety and
Yeah,
going to jail and getting caught and
that's when the
yeah.
relationship gonna stop being secure,
Mm.
right? Number 4 is intentionality. I'm a pause and step to the side while you talk about intentionality. Go ahead,
Um
because
when
you wanted to say something.
Yeah, I just wanted to say when we're talking about being intentional, which we do so many times in our conversations or the rich conversations, just about marriage and relationships, period, you have to be intentional. But I was coming at it, or I just wanted to add the 3 C's that I call the 3 C's of her needs. And that's the consistency, one, the compassion, and the consideration. Those things that you have to be intentional about. And I think that pretty much sums up the safety for sure, and the security, and even the risk. Because if you're consistent, I'm willing to take that risk because I know you pretty much come through or you're consistent. But so when you're being intentional, for me, those things come to mind. If you're being intentional about considering me, my feelings, my thoughts, if you're being intentional about being consistent about what you say you're going to do, um, and then that was the consider and being compassionate. Yeah.
I always get tickled when I hear you say that
Why you say that?
because you say it as the 3 C's for her, as if
Me?
men don't need those things.
No,
three
no,
things.
no, no. And I think I said it once before.
I, I hear you,
Right.
but you always say the 3 C's for her.
Because for women, and we talk about it a lot, and you hear it more, that safety and security is big.
You don't think safety and security is for men is big?
We do, but so I make you feel safe and secure far as the protection aspect part of it.
Same.
And we're talking about protecting different things, but we've talked about, okay, somebody's breaking in. You want me to go to the door? Am I protecting?
But that's all the tangible.
Mm-hmm.
But let's take that example. I love it. Let's take it. Somebody's breaking in the door,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because this gets into a topic that doesn't get talked about a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, this is a whole nother talk. So if he is not feeling safe and secure, how willing do you think he is to go and face that danger in the middle of the night? Yes, our safety and security is different.
That's what I was going to
Because
say.
I go back to Proverbs 31, the
Mm-hmm.
heart of her husband do safely trust in her.
Mm-hmm.
If he doesn't feel his heart has a safe place to rest, his desire, he don't even care, because when a man with a wounded heart becomes reckless with his heart.
Mm-hmm.
So it is a situation where, like, somebody come in, man, hey, maybe this the day. Maybe this the day they take me out and I'm out of here and I ain't got to deal with the insecurity of my heart anymore.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I definitely say a lot of things that we point out are dual. They're for both sides, but they're just different ways because we're different beings,
They
you
look
know.
different.
And
They
so
look
they
different.
look different because you're to love, I'm to respect. So in those aspects, all those things make the same difference and point from that point of view, from respect, from loving me. So this is how I feel love. And so for me to take those things consideration, consistency, and compassion from your side, hey, these are the things that he feels or you feel as being respected.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Cool. So intentionality is about being intentional on purpose,
Yes.
not stumbling into it in terms of what you do for your significant other, right? Being on purpose about it. Being if you fall short, being on purpose about correcting that.
Right.
If you fall short, if you miss the mark on something, if you find yourself, or even when you do something great, it wasn't just like, oh, yeah, 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 I meant to do that. Woo. No, I was intentional about doing that. That's what I
Right.
set out to do. And it came out better than even I anticipated, but I absolutely wanted to hit here and it landed here. I'm good.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, okay. And let's hit this last one, risk. Risk.
Ooh.
If you are going to have risk, if you're going to have true intimacy, there is no true intimacy without risk. If
Yeah.
you're trying to have an intimate relationship while saying I'm gonna still be protecting a little bit of myself, a little bit of my heart, a little bit of this and a little bit of that, but I want this intimate relationship, you cannot do it if you're not willing to be at risk.
Mm. True.
So if you want to build true intimacy, lasting intimacy, you got to have familiarity without contempt. You got to have safety. You got to have security.
Security.
You got to understand intentionality, right? Being purposeful about being intimate and exposed and vulnerable with them. And that vulnerability, that true vulnerability, comes with risk. Comes with risk. So, listen, whew,
That was good.
that's all we have for you. If you have some questions, now is the time for Q&A. You can drop those into the chat. We will be happy to take your questions from you right now. If you don't have any, we're going to call it a night and we're going to say have a good one.
All right. Thank you for all your comments. We did see your comments.
Yes, we really do appreciate your comments.
And we're praying for you.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Okay.
Okay.
If that's it, we are out of here and we will see you on the next Rich Conversation.
We love you.
God bless.
For real. Good night.